Rome had always been a city of ambition, and after consolidating its control over its immediate neighbors, it was ready to expand. Slowly but surely, the Republic defeated rivals such as the Sabines until by the early 5th century BC it was prepared for larger confrontations. One of the earliest of these came at the Battle of Lake Regillus, where Rome faced the Latin League. The Roman dictator at the time, Aulus Postumius Albus, led the charge with his master of horse Titius Ebutius Helva at his side. Across the field stood Octavius Mamilius of Tusculum, and with him was the notorious Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, the last king of Rome who had been exiled and humiliated. His presence alone made the Romans fight with a furious passion, for they hated the idea of seeing the disgraced king return to power. The battle was fierce and personal, with leaders on both sides engaging directly in combat. Mamilius and Postumius wounded one another, but it was the Roman cavalry that made the difference. Dismounting to fight on foot, they pushed the Latins back and captured their camp. With their forces broken, the Latins fled, leaving Rome the clear victor. Though bloodied, Rome had survived its first true test as a republic, and the victory gave it credibility and strength. Yet the Latin tribes were not finished, and conflict would continue for decades. A generation later, Rome fought the Equi at Mount Algidus. This tribe had been a constant menace, raiding Tusculum and Roman territory. In 458 BC, Rome responded to an Equi invasion, and with 2 armies it surrounded and crushed them. But peace never lasted long. The Latins, the Equi, and other tribes returned to the field within years, and in one clash managed to inflict thousands of Roman casualties, even capturing a Roman camp. Yet once again, Roman discipline and adaptability saved the day. They divided their forces and struck the enemy from multiple directions. What had seemed a looming defeat was transformed into another Roman triumph. Through such struggles, the Republic steadily established its dominance in central Italy. By this time, Rome had completed its early priorities. It had built the framework of a functioning republic, created a reliable political system, and subdued its closest rivals. The stage was set for expansion, but ambition always brought new dangers. While Rome grew stronger, so too did other peoples, and the greatest threat of the 4th century BC came from the north. The Gallic tribes, known to the Romans as the Gauls, had moved into the Po Valley, and their pressure on central Italy was growing. By 390 BC, they were dangerously close. That year, the Senones, a Gallic tribe under their king Brennus, were invited to the Etruscan city of Clusium. A nobleman of Clusium sought revenge on a rival and called in the Gauls to help. Alarmed, Clusium appealed to Rome for assistance. Rome sent 3 ambassadors from the powerful Fabian family to mediate, but the talks turned violent. In the chaos, one ambassador killed a Gallic chief, a shocking violation of diplomatic custom. Brennus demanded that the guilty be handed over. The Roman Senate hesitated, unwilling to sacrifice the Fabii, and when the people were consulted, they protected their own. The Gauls, enraged, marched south. The Romans were unprepared. At the river Allia, they hastily assembled an army, but without proper camps or formation, their line stretched too thin. Brennus saw a small reserve on a nearby hill and mistook it for an ambush. Striking there, he shattered the Roman defense. Soldiers fled in panic, some to the nearby city of Veii, others to Rome, and many were cut down on the field. The defeat was catastrophic. The Gauls then marched on Rome itself and found the city gates open. Most citizens had already fled or retreated to the Capitoline Hill. Rome was sacked. Houses were burned, treasures looted, and only the fortified Capitoline held out. From Veii, surviving soldiers called for a leader. They chose Marcus Furius Camillus, who had once been exiled, but was now recalled as dictator. Before he could arrive, the Gauls attempted to storm the Capitoline at night. It was geese sacred to the goddess Juno that gave warning with their cries. The Romans rallied, drove back the attackers, and killed many on the cliffs. Yet famine and disease gripped both sides and negotiations began. The Gauls demanded a ransom of 1,000 pounds of gold. According to legend, Brennus threw his sword on the scales, crying woe to the vanquished. But as the ransom was being prepared, Camillus arrived with a fresh army. He declared that Rome paid with steel, not with gold, and attacked. The weary Gauls were defeated and driven from the city. Rome had survived its darkest hour. The Gallic sack scarred Roman memory for centuries, but it also hardened the Republic. Determined never again to be caught unprepared, Rome strengthened its armies, walls, and discipline. Wars with the Latin League and other neighbors soon followed. For 30 years, Rome fought the tribes of Italy until around 358 BC, when fear of another Gallic war forced a temporary peace with the Latins. Yet conflict with Etruscans, Samnites, and even Greeks still lay ahead. In 340 BC, the Latin War erupted again. Despite a recent peace, Rome fought with determination and emerged decisively victorious. Soon after the Samnite Wars began, these mountain people of southern Italy were tough and resourceful, and the struggle lasted for decades. Rome suffered defeats but learned new tactics, especially the manipular legion formation, which gave flexibility on rough terrain. By 305 BC, the Romans had broken the Samnites at the Battle of Bovianum and annexed much of their land. Colonies were planted to secure territory, but resentment festered. In 298 BC, the Samnites rebelled again, triggering the Third Samnite War. Rome faced coalitions of Samnites, Etruscans, Umbrians, and Gauls, but at the Battle of Sentinum in 295 BC, Rome prevailed. This enormous clash tested the Republic as never before, yet Roman endurance carried the day. By the early 3rd century, the Samnites were subdued and Etruscan power broken. Rome now controlled most of central and southern Italy, but challenges continued. In 282 BC, Rome fought the city of Tarentum, a wealthy Greek colony in southern Italy. Tarentum called for help from King Pyrrhus of Epirus, a renowned general with ambitions of his own. Pyrrhus crossed into Italy with elephants and a professional army. At Heraclea in 280 BC, he defeated the Romans, shocking the Republic. Yet his losses were heavy. 2 years later at Asculum, he won again, but at such cost that he lamented another victory would ruin him. These Pyrrhic victories became famous in history. Rome, however, refused to yield. The Senate, inspired by the blind elder Appius Claudius, rejected peace. Pyrrhus marched near Rome but could not capture cities or break their will. Eventually, he withdrew to Sicily and then back to Greece, where he was killed. Without him, Tarentum surrendered. By 272 BC, Rome had mastered almost the entire Italian peninsula. This triumph marked a turning point. In little more than 2 centuries, Rome had grown from a small city-state threatened by its neighbors to the dominant power of Italy. It had survived exile kings' battles with the Latins and humiliation at the hands of the Gauls, decades of exhausting wars with the Samnites, and the formidable challenge of Pyrrhus. Each struggle taught Rome discipline, resilience, and adaptation. The Republic's armies were now hardened, its political system tested, and its citizens united by shared victories and shared disasters. Yet as Rome looked south across the sea, it realized that its rise had brought it to the edge of a new confrontation. For just beyond Sicily stood Carthage, the wealthy naval power of the Western Mediterranean. The wars that awaited would be unlike anything Rome had faced before. But those struggles lay ahead. For now, in the early 3rd century, BC, Rome had become the unchallenged master of Italy, and a new age of expansion was about to begin.